Hey everyone, we're at Donkey Projections. I'm Eric, and we have Lucas as always.
Hey everyone.
Today is December 1st, 2020. Happy December, people. And today we are going to be talking about the top five biggest surprises that we were just not expecting to happen in all three elections that happened this 2020 election.
Yep, we didn't see any surprises in the governor election, so we're not going to touch on that. But we will be touching on what surprises we had in the House elections, the Senate elections, and the presidential election. And with that being said, let's get right into it. All right, so at number 5, we have the state of Florida. I know a lot of you might be saying, "Oh, really? You guys expected Florida?" Well, the reason why we're putting Florida so low was because we did forecast that Florida would turn red. And the reason for that was the Miami-Dade Republican voter registration. We did have that feeling that Florida was going to turn red. Now, did we expect this margin? No, we didn't. We didn't think he was going to
Absolutely.
go in 3.3 points. That's the largest margin Republican has won. Actually, anyone has won Florida since 2004. It was, utterly shocking how far some of these counties, especially in southern Florida, moved to the right. We can take a look at this right here. Miami-Dade County, 22 points more Republican than 2016. I think that Joe Biden did pretty well, except for, Miami-Dade. If you look at some of the counties here, he actually flipped a couple, if I recall correctly. Pinellas improved in. He did improve in some of these counties, but of course, Trump improved a lot in some of the other ones. Osceola, for example, Miami-Dade, Broward. It was the Latinos. Latinos and Latinas, Trump captured them. He was able to sway them over to his side and allow him, and they were the ones who allowed him to have the victory here. And now I do want to check here. I think, if I recall correctly, they do have an exit poll of how the Latinos split for Trump or in Biden. If I recall correctly, it was actually a 52-48 split, which is an incredibly good job that Trump did with Latinos in the state. That I was definitely incredibly surprised about. Let me see, exit polls. It should be somewhere around here. So, yes, here it is. Okay, 46-53. That's insane. Uh, I don't know any recent Republican candidate that's done that well with the Hispanics. I feel like Trump really did a good job getting them because if you think about it, Florida does have a lot of Cubans that do tend to vote Republican, but a 53-46, that's almost breaking even with them. And usually Hispanics, Democrats do very well with Hispanics. That clearly was not seen in the state of Florida this election.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add one more thing, and that Donald Trump was really he understood that this was going to be a contested election, so therefore he had to squeeze out as many margins as possible to come up with any sort of win possible. Like he needed Florida, especially to even have some sort of a chance of winning, which is why he portrayed Joe Biden he portrayed Joe Biden as someone that is really not favorable to the Cubans who did flee socialist Cuba, and as a result, the Cubans did end up voting for him, and Donald Trump more than ever really needed that in 2020 rather than any other year, just because in what situation he was in. So I really was not expecting that his words would actually influence the Cubans so much to create that sort of divide. And I feel like that's just, a surprise worth mentioning.
I absolutely agree with you on that. And Eric, while you're at it, why don't you head now into number 4?
Yes, and number four on our list would be the margins for the presidential election that came out in the states Iowa, Texas, and Ohio. The thing that happened here was that Joe Biden, especially in July, as we always said, that was the high point of the Democratic Party. And they were feeling very good, a bit too good about the outcome and the potential that of like Democratic turnout in these states. Yes, each and every year, I'll take Texas for example, the margin is getting smaller. In 2016, it was by 9 points. This year, it went to Donald Trump in about 6 points. Each year, the margins are getting smaller in Texas specifically. So I guess the Democrats were kind of right, but they really overestimated the fact that Texas could even come close to going to Joe Biden. And the polling, once again, polling is the real loser of this election, as we will delve into in another video. They were showing, very different results, completely outside of the margin of error for most, if not all, of the states. And that applies with Ohio and Iowa as well. They were polling like, I don't know, lean, like 1 point margins or something in each and every state. And there were some points right before the election, maybe 2 weeks before, where Biden was even up. And that the real results couldn't be more far than that than what actually happened. So this was a huge surprise to us, because I remember watching and Ohio was actually doing fairly well. But then it looked like almost all of the counties went to Donald Trump. And when they finalized the results and it went to Donald Trump in 8 points, that came to kind of a shock to me. And also the same thing in Iowa, because once again, the Democrats really overestimated the potential, and that it did not turn out at all like that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that. And just taking a look at the wrong one, shift from 2016, I want to look at Texas really quick. And I remember God of Politics touching on this as well in Texas. Oops, let me zoom in here. How the southern region, look at how well Trump performed in this southern region with Hispanics. He greatly improved upon Hispanics. Starr County, 55 points more Republican. I touched this in another video we did. 55 points more Republican. All the southern regions, 40 points more Republican. 25, 19, 23. Look at this. Look at how long these red lines are. It's honestly pretty insane. Let's check again here at the exit polling data, see how well he did with Hispanics in Texas. Look at how well he was able to do with Hispanics. 58-41. I feel like Biden could have done and should have done a lot better with Hispanics here, but he did lack in Texas for sure. And, taking a look at Ohio again, a lot of these counties swung to the right that we were not expecting. And I want to say, especially Ohio, we were very surprised about. We were expecting maybe, a 2-3 point win. Actually, our prediction had this one as a tilt, but we were thinking maybe 2-3 points. It ended up being 8 points. That's like no difference from 2016. Now, the one difference is the polling showed something different. The polling showed Trump only up by 0.8, which was vastly different from what actually happened this election. And finally, Iowa, I think Biden did improve. Initially, it was a 9-point margin, has dwindled down to 8 point something. But still, look at that. Look at how many red arrows there are. But anyway, it was very surprising to see the large margins here. All right. At number 3 now, and you guys are probably going to be surprised at this as well. Our number 3 is actually Georgia. Now, you're probably surprised why we put it this low. You probably expect us to be number 1. We have another thing for number 1 for sure. We, again, were not super surprised by Georgia, but we were a decent amount surprised. The reason for that is because we saw high black turnout. We saw high black turnout in this election that we kind of did see in the voter registration, the early turnout, but we didn't expect it to be this much. And Eric, why don't you talk about Georgia now?
Yeah, so you started off with exactly what I wanted to say. I feel like the reason why Georgia, went to Joe Biden was because of early turnout. And, a lot of people are really thinking Stacey Abrams, ran for governor, really got about 850,000 people to register to vote. And of course, there are a lot of other people behind the scenes that are also doing the same. But she made headlines basically because of her supposed work, and the African Americans in Georgia really pushed this over the edge. And yes, this was a very close race in Georgia, about 14,000 votes, but still, this is a pretty historic win for Joe Biden, and none of us were actually expecting it to go to Joe Biden until more recently, until the election. I remember I had a figure regarding the 134%. Maybe it was wrong, but long story short, turnout was extremely high, and not only in Georgia but everywhere. But it cost Donald Trump to stay in Georgia, and their legal battles do not seem to be succeeding here, and if not anywhere else.
I absolutely agree. It's these counties here: DeKalb, Fulton, Clayton. Biden did very well in the suburbs. He usually does pretty well in the suburbs. Look at how much the swing is at Atlanta. Georgia went from being, if I recall correctly, it was a 5-point race in 2016. It was either 5 or 3. It's one of those numbers, but I think it was 5 points. Just swinging all the way to the left to go into the Joe Biden column. He improved so much in Fulton and Henry County, Fayette, Douglas, and additionally, the turnout was super high here, and that is what contributed to his win. It was the black turnout, and I think that this was definitely a shocker to people. And props to a few election channels that did get this one correctly, and to our Instagram manager who got this one correctly as well. He was saying that Georgia was going to go blue. He actually got it correct. But this was definitely one of the most surprising races in the presidential election. Actually, this is the most surprising result in the presidential election, and we'll see more on what our other surprises is right now. At number 2 is, in general, the House pickups by Republicans. A lot of these we saw coming. Colin Peterson in the 7th district, that I saw coming for sure. That was probably the most obvious flip we were seeing. Joe Cunningham in South Carolina first. His loss, it was not as obvious, but I did think it was going to happen. Same with Kendra Horn in Oklahoma 5th. Burgess Owens' win in Utah District 4. I was thinking it was a complete toss-up, but it does look like Burgess Owens did edge out a win there. Then there were the ones that we were not expecting at all. Let's go into them. I didn't specify on, we didn't specify in which House races in particular, because there were so many that if we listed out all of them, this would be a really long video counting down from, actually no, the entire top 5, if we did individual races, would be the House races for sure. So let's start off with the first 2 districts in California. California's 39th district. Young Kim beat Guy Cisneros. Now, this we did not see coming. Both this district and let me hover over it. Michelle Steele's win in California 48th against Harley Ruda, they were definitely not seen. As you can see, these are pretty small districts here, which shows that it must be pretty densely populated, which do tend to vote Democratic. So we were pretty surprised by the pickups that they were able to obtain in these 2 places. TJ Cox's loss, we did kind of see this one coming because he won in such a slim margin in 2018. And the candidate he was running against was the former representative here. So that I kind of did see coming. Now, on the other hand, some of these other races, most notably in Florida, in Miami, Carlos Gimenez's win over Representative Powell, and also Donna Shalala's loss in the 27th district. Now, Miami was a complete bloodbath for Democrats here. Donna Shalala's loss here was very surprising because we didn't expect so many Hispanics to side with President Trump here. Now, that did end up happening. And this was probably, I think, the biggest shock to me in this election was Donna Shalala losing. She was the former the former Secretary of Health and Human Services under Bill Clinton. She was elected in 2018. I didn't expect this, considering that the 27th district isn't a super Republican district. I thought this would go blue. Same can be said about 26 too. I thought that Muckarsil Powell. I thought she was going to win this one as well. And I'm sorry, I think I'm butchering her name. But that I was also expecting a win here from as well. So I was very surprised by both of these Florida districts. I expected them 100% to go blue. Go to the 538 forecasting, you can also see them. They all both were likely Democratic congressional districts. And the same can be said about Hinson's win here against Finkenauer. Finkenauer, I think this was also likely. I didn't expect this one as well. This was 11,000 vote victory. Now read a heart. This one came really close. If you can see, this is a 6 vote margin. But I didn't expect this one either. And I think a lot of these races, I definitely did not expect. Eric, what do you think about these House races here?
Yeah, and I just want to bring up a point that I made in a previous video, and that is that the Democrats really expected that every race, not just the presidential race, but every race would go like the presidential race did. And even then, there were some states, as we talked about, Texas, Ohio, Iowa, that went in blowout margins to Donald Trump. And they really thought that they would, maintain the House in a pretty significant margin, unlike this, and take back the Senate. And the fact that they didn't just shows that a lot of people just wanted to vote Donald Trump out of office because other Republicans that are more specified to their own district and have their own policies are more favorable to them. But in general, Donald Trump representing the United States of America and the Republican Party probably just didn't go by them, which is why the House stayed pretty Republican. But, most people, the majority of people were like, okay, we got to vote this person out of office.
Yeah, I see what you're saying here. I think that the down balloting, I feel like some people might have split balloted between Joe Biden on the presidential, but then voted down ballot Republican. I definitely think that could have happened. Now, talking about, let's just take a look at this really quickly. The toss-up districts. Every single district here went red, except for, actually, all of them are, but Republicans are leading in all three. I think there is a chance that Brindisi can win in the 22nd district, but other than that, they're all red. And looking at the Democrats expected to win narrowly column, red, 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 red. The Republicans were able to win 7 of these districts that were supposed to go to the Democrats. And I think especially in Texas, a lot of these Texas congressional districts, I think it was actually 2 of them, I was expecting to go blue, and that was not the case. And I was very, very surprised by that. But look at these results. New York 24, Republicans 12, Minnesota 7th. I mean, I did see this one coming. It's a very rural, very conservative district served by Colin Peterson. It was going to turn Republican within the next few years. But wow, this was very, very shocking for the Democrats on the House level. It looks like they are going to maintain a majority, but a very, very narrow majority. All right. Before we head to number 1, let's turn it over to Eric for our honorable mentions.
Yep. So the first honorable mention that I think, honorable mention meaning we can't give it first place, but it's still quite a surprise. I think the first one we can do is Joni Ernst's kind of blowout in Iowa. And as Lucas talked about with the down balloting, this is definitely most evident in Iowa. They saw Donald Trump, they saw Joni Ernst. And, maybe they were informed about, who she was as a person, but the polls, once again, completely said otherwise in the Senate race. Greenfield, it was essentially neck and neck. But after the debate, it really seemed like Greenfield had the leg up when she could identify the correct price for the cash crop in their state, which is pretty important in the state of Iowa. But the people have spoken, and Joni Ernst won by a whopping 8 points or so. And that was just, really not expected. And that's one less seat that the Democrats were able to pick up in order for them to regain the majority. They still have a chance with Georgia is too special race, but it's pretty slim now. And now that I'm looking at the margin, I think it was actually 6.6.5. And people, I can't do math, but it's okay.
All right. And that is our first honorable mention. And the second honorable mention that we're going to have to give here is Montana. I was expecting a closer race than this. Steve Bullock is such a good candidate. And considering that Montana does tend to elect Democratic candidates, for example, Steve Bullock was elected as governor. John Tester has been reelected as the Democratic senator. I was kind of expecting, maybe there will be enough split balloting so that Bullock can come within 3 points of winning. We did not see that. Steve Daines won by 10 points. That was very unexpected. This was very close to, eerily reminiscent to the 2018 Senate race in Tennessee between, gosh, why am I forgetting his name? The former Democratic governor, ran against Marsha Blackburn. I don't know why I'm forgetting his name now, but it was interesting to see that this margin was actually kind of close to that Tennessee Senate race. And the huge difference is Montana elects Democratic candidates. Of course, it is very solidly Republican. But on the other hand, looking at Tennessee votes almost always, on every single state level, Republican. We don't see that in Montana, and that's why I am very surprised by this result here.
Yes, it was Phil Bretson in Tennessee.
Phil Bretson. Oh, wow. I don't know what's happening with me today, but anyway. And Eric, you want to take the final honorable mention that we have today?
Yep, and that would really be North Carolina Senate race between Thom Tillis and Cal Cunningham. I kind of expected the presidential race to go into Donald Trump more and more coming close to the election, but I was really not expecting the Senate race to follow. Once again, I feel like down balloting is also present here, which is probably one of the fairly big factors as to why Thom Tillis won. Once again, he was elected in a red wave year, and polling did not have him up in the majority of polls whatsoever. It was always Cal Cunningham having a pretty solid lead in such a battleground state like North Carolina. There was a sexting scandal that Cunningham was involved in, but it really wasn't political, and Lucas and I really did not think it was going to impact the election or the race here as much as it did. But once again, that clearly did not happen, and Tillis ended up winning this race by essentially 2%. So just like the presidential election, which, more and more makes me think that it's just down balloting that's happening here.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And just to mention again with North Carolina, we actually made a video in the summer. There was a poll showing Cunningham up by 13 points. We were like, oh, wow, must be an outlier. But I really didn't think he was going to lose here. And now for number one.
Drum roll, please.
I kind of spoiled it when I first moved to this tab, but it is Maine. Maine Senate election is absolutely our number one biggest surprise this election, without a doubt. Joe Biden won. Let's actually check this right now. He won the state of Maine very, very convincingly. He won it by, I can't do math on the spot, around 9 points. That's a pretty good margin considering that Hillary Clinton barely won Maine. Now, you would think with that kind of margin, so Sarah Gideon would at least do a lot better than she did. And this was completely unexpected. Before we dig into the actual results, let's take a look at what we were thinking pre-election. Every single poll showed Sarah Gideon up. Every single one. Look at this.
Literally every single one.
Except for maybe this even here. But every single one. Look at this. There was this one poll, I remember we talked about this, dismissed it as an outlier. We didn't think much of it.
That's basically what ended up happening. Maybe it was by chance, but the fact that this happened was really unexpected. We thought it was going to be a lot more contested than this, And as we talked about, I think in a previous video, Maine has a different type of voting, which is probably why the results ended up being so drastic. Lucas can delve more into that.
Right. So Maine does have ranked choice voting. It has a ranked choice voting system, meaning that people rank their candidates based on how much they prefer them. They want them to win the election, basically. So if no candidate on the first ballot, the majority of people who voted won for them, then they take everyone's second choice vote and they add that to everyone's total. So Lisa Savage is the Green Party candidate here. She did say, put Sarah Gideon as your second choice. I don't think that was needed because Susan Collins ended up winning over 50% anyway. But essentially, just looking at this, Lisa Savage took 5% away. Yes, let's add that into her Sarah Gideon's numbers. That's still 47.4 versus 51%. That's three. Oh boy, I can't do math. I think that's like, I got my calculator out here doing math on the spot. But that's a 3.6 point margin. And that was extremely unexpected. 3.6 points? Are you kidding me? If you told me that before the election, I would told you were insane. And of course, that's assuming that Sarah Gideon gets all of Lisa Savage's votes, and we know that that's not going to happen. But that's insane. Every single factor was pointing against Susan Collins.
Yes.
Fundraising. Sarah Gideon completely has outraised Susan Collins. Sarah Gideon's very experienced, Maine House Speaker. Susan Collins is the most unpopular senator in the United States right now. She's seen by the Maine people as being too partisan. Every single factor was against her, and yet she still won. And I think what possibly could have impacted it was voting no on Amy Coney Barrett. In hindsight, looking at it back then, we were thinking, oh, it's not going to do anything. It's too little, too late. I think it could have actually made a difference here.
Yes, and technically, there is a way, but it's extremely unlikely. And I think actually because of Joe Biden's already current administration being picked, there is a way that Sarah Gideon could get on the Senate floor, and that is if Joe Biden chooses Angus King, who is now a sitting senator in Maine, into his cabinet, which leaves a vacancy. And if the Democratic governor in Maine, sees that there's a vacancy, and she can just appoint Sarah Gideon to the Senate. But that would essentially be a reverse of what happened in Arizona in 2018. There was a vacancy, and the governor appointed the senator who lost. So I'm not sure if that's going to happen, and that would probably make Sarah Gideon extremely unpopular, but there technically is a way.
Yeah, and I think this is definitely a huge shock. Sarah Gideon was an incredibly good candidate, and she even spoke at the DNC. Okay, well, she kind of spoke at the DNC. She introduced, was it Billie Eilish? No, it wasn't Billie Eilish. She introduced a singer. I remember that moment pretty clearly. But just look at this. Leading up to election day, it did look like it was going to get closer. 2, 1, 3, 2, 4, 8. And I'm going to be completely honest, I kind of just dismissed them. I'm like, oh, they're probably just outliers. It's not going to be this close. And it ended up being not this close. I was right on that part. But it was to the other candidate's direction. It ended up being 3 points Susan Collins. Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm speaking with 3 points, assuming that every single vote that went to Savage went to Gideon, which obviously wouldn't happen. But still, this is... It's just so surprising. And let's look at the results now, because I think we've done enough talking about what we were thinking pre-election. Look at this. Look at how well Susan Collins did in the 2nd district. And I think Donald Trump did pretty well in the 2nd district too. But even in the 1st district, Sarah Gideon didn't do that well. She didn't win York County. She did win Cumberland County, which does include Portland here. But it was just really not that well. She did not do well. She lost a lot of these counties that we were expecting her to win, at least maybe a few of them, but we did not see them happen. And the margins for Susan Collins were simply too much that she gained on Gideon, that Gideon did concede, I believe, the day after the election, which was, again, super duper shocking. And now that is the end of the video for today. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this episode, please hit a like button if you like our content, and please subscribe. We'll see you in our next episode soon.
See ya.